Raider Nation, what's going on? You're watching the Raiders Report. And coming up here on today's show, I'm going to look at some Raiders training camp rumors. We're going to look at some camp battles to watch. I'm going to tell you who I believe is going to win the most important battles. And then at the end of today's show, I get often asked, like, who are some sleepers that you believe could make the 53-man roster? I'm going to go through 5 sleeper names that every single person on the nation needs to keep in mind. So what's the first position battle that I'm going to be watching very closely? And I'm also going to be watching this one really closely during the preseason. It's Derek Carr's backup. Who is going to be the QB2, the backup quarterback? It's between Jarrett Stidham and it's between Nick Mullens. No disrespect to UDFA Chase Garbers. This is a two-man race here. The Raiders, they traded for Jarrett Stidham this offseason. Nick Mullens, I actually believe, is the more talented quarterback, which is why I am going to sit up here and say that Nick Mullens is going to win this battle. And I'm hoping from training camp, he learns the playbook, he gets the relationships with the players, really just starts to utilize his overall better athletic ability, and he's going to be able to show it. Now, sure, Jarrett Stidham might have the upper hand right now, but Raiders players have told me Nick Mullens is clearly better. Let's go to the next story here, and it's around starting strong safety. Who's going to win the starting strong safety battle? We know Trevon Merrick. He's going to be the starting free safety, and you might mix and match here some safety positions because Patrick Graham's system is always going to change up. But the starting safety battle is between Johnathan Abram and Duron Harmon, right? If you think it's going to be Abram, type 24. If it's Harmon, type 30. So the Raiders this offseason, they signed Harmon. And Harmon has those past experiences playing 2013 to 2019 in a Patriot system. Technically, you could even say he played in a Patriot system when he was with the Lions because Matt Patricia was underneath New England. He went there to Detroit. That's why I'm going to go with Duron. He's the better coverage safety. He's also got that leadership role. Also, you're already seeing Raiders players talk about how much they like Harmon. And when the Raiders signed him, I told y'all, it reminds me of the Casey Hayward move. Yes, some people weren't really excited about it, but when you can add a veteran who knows certain defensive schemes, who can also be that coach out there for you, it goes a long way. And the signing of Duron Harmon, I guarantee at the end of the season, we go back and we look and we're like, you know what? That was one of the best moves that this Raiders team made. One of the best moves that y'all can make right now is subscribing to the Raiders Report. Hit that sub button underneath the video on YouTube if you're watching on your phone. Turn on those notifications, or if you're watching on your TV, or if you're watching on a computer, laptop, whatever you got, scan this with your phone. Open up your camera phone, highlight the camera over this QR code here. Link's going to come up. You click that link, you click subscribe, and that way you're subscribed to the Raiders Report. Let's go to the next roster battle that I'm watching here. Interior offensive line. And I really, truly believe that you got your right tackle spot, kind of up for grabs. We'll talk about that. But from a left guard, center, right guard perspective, this one could go a lot of different ways. And for the terms of what I have heard so far, it does sound like Denzel Good is going to be the starting right guard, which means center left guard is up for grabs between John Simpson, Andre James, and Dylan Parham. John Simpson was drafted in the 4th round out of Clemson, 109 overall a few years ago by the Gruden regime, and he started every single game at left guard last season for the Silver and Black. Andre James also started at center, got a brand new deal, played a little bit better and better as the season went on. Dylan Parham, he was drafted in round 390 overall this past draft by the current regime. So if you had to ask me, okay, if I had to bench one of these players, the player that I'm benching is going to be John Simpson. And from what I understand, Simpson, pound for pound, may be the strongest player on the Raiders. He actually might be. I just have a lot of faith in Dylan Parham. And if I was the team right now, I would try to get Parham out there on the field as quick as I possibly could. Yes, he offers you more flexibility if he's a backup because he can play left guard, he can play center, he can play right guard. Hell, this guy can even play right tackle. John Simpson really, to me, is only a left guard at the NFL, but you could see some mixing and matching going on here. But if I had to pick one to bench, I'm going to bench John Simpson. I'm going to put Parham as the left guard because I think he's a better overall player, and Andre James has improved quite a bit as a center. The next roster battle to keep an eye on is starting right tackle, and this is arguably the biggest one out there because we talk a lot about the interior line like we just did, but the right tackle spot to me is the domino. Once you figure out who that right tackle is, then you're going to start to figure it out, because if Brandon Parker beats Alex Leatherwood out, I've been told the Raiders are still going to try to get Leatherwood in that starting lineup, which means he's going to take one of those interior spots, or at least try to. I really, really hope that Leatherwood wins this job. It doesn't mean that he does win the job. Who do you think is going to win that right tackle spot? Leatherwood type 70, Brandon Parker type 75. I'm going to go with Leatherwood, and it's for multiple reasons. One, when a coaching staff wants a player to win a job, they give him more chances. That's the biggest reason why I'm going to go with Leatherwood. He's also the better athlete than Parker. That's not saying too much, because Parker has maybe actually better footwork than Leatherwood does, but Leatherwood's the stronger player. He has the higher upside, and same thing here. Who has a better chance long-term to be on the Raiders? I say Alex Leatherwood more than Parker. And if I'm Carmen Brasillo, one of the reasons and one of the opportunities I had to take this job was I saw how much of a failure that right side of the offensive line was and how much of a failure Leatherwood was. And if I can work with him and I can turn him into something, that sounds pretty good to me. The final battle. Excuse me. Wide receiver 3. And you know you've got Devontae Adams. You have Hunter Renfrow. Those are your top 2 players. But the wide receiver 3 spot is wide open. You got Keelan Cole, Mack Hollins, and Demarcus Robinson. All 3 of these players were signed this offseason. Cole was signed most recently. A few days later, Raiders traded away Bryan Edwards. Mack Hollins gives you a lot of special teams value. 6'4", field stretcher, good overall athlete. Demarcus Robinson was signed first, though. The guy that I am going to go with here, because when you look at all these names, in terms of who's going to win that wide receiver 3 spot, it's going to be Keelan Cole. Keelan Cole is the best option. He's got the early lead, according to reports. He's got early leads over Mack Hollins. He's got a really much bigger lead over Demarcus Robinson. The fact that he's a smart route runner, the fact that he's a better route runner, that's not only going to complement DC strengths, it's also going to complement Josh McDaniels, and it's going to complement what this offense can do. So I'm telling y'all right now, Keelan Cole will be the wide receiver 3. Before we get into some sleepers that could potentially make the Raiders' 53-man roster, listen to the Raiders Report on Rumble. You can listen to the show like a podcast. You can watch the show like a podcast, but it's also ad-free. So go to rumble.com/Raiders Report. This link is going to be available for you all in the comments and in the description of today's video. Let's now look at some sleepers that could potentially make this 53-man roster. And I picked 5 names that I tried to not talk about too much in the past. The first name is Darien Butler. And the reason why I'm going to go with Darien Butler, the UDFA from Arizona State, is because Antonio Pierce was his position coach, so linebackers coach, for all 4 of his college years. And when he was coming out of the draft, I had a round 7 grade on Butler. I like some of his ability as a player. Sure, he can be, a little bit undersized, but the linebacking room is definitely one that's going to be difficult for me to fully grasp. I know it's Denzel Perriman. I like Divine Diablo a lot, Jayon Brown, but then after that, it is open. Do I think Butler ends up making the team? Probably not. But if we go back and we look at past years where some guy just was able to slip into the 53-man, Butler has a good chance because not a lot of the other linebackers are proven on the Raiders, and because of his connections with Raiders linebacking coach Antonio Pierce. The next name coming up here that could be a potential sleeper to make the 53-man roster, another linebacker, and it's Kenny Young. Kenny Young, to me, is a guy who's an inside dude who's probably built a lot better for a 3-4 scheme, and when the Raiders are out in those 3-4 fronts in Graham's system, this is your opportunity for Kenny Young. He does have past experience playing special teams. He hasn't really done it the past 2 seasons, but according to reports, he looked good during workouts. He's got an upper hand, and if the Raiders had their top 4 linebackers right now, it sounds like Kenny Young would be that number 4 guy. If he does play special teams, that's great. He had 75 tackles last season for the Rams. He's also played a little bit with the Denver Broncos last season. He didn't play special teams with Denver with McMahon, but there is still some connection there. There's some familiarity from top to bottom. I mean, look at this Raiders linebacker room, right? We're talking about Butler. We're talking about Kenny Young. Again, I think most people who are watching right now, sure, Kyle Fackrell, he's going to be more of an edge rusher, outside linebacker. But if this team's trying to keep more LBs in terms of interior dudes, Denzel Perriman, Divine Diablo, Jayon Brown, I think Butler as well could be considered the inside linebacker. Like, a lot of different pieces to go around. Butler might actually have a better shot at making the team than Micah Kaiser, which might surprise a lot of people. So what do you think here? Because the last time I did a 53-man roster projection for the Raiders, I believe I had 5 linebackers making the team. I did not have Butler, but I had Kenny Young making it. How many linebackers do you think the Silver and Black keep? I've seen 53-man roster projection videos with 4. I've seen 5. I've seen 6. It's a position that there's a lot of flux. Is that the right word? A lot of friction? Yeah. Sam says, yeah, flux makes sense. Well, let's keep this video going. We'll keep flucking this one up. Amik Robertson, you're next up here. And Robertson now, when I originally designed this show, the Trayvon Mullen pup list stuff didn't come out yet. I knew Trayvon was going to be banged up. I didn't anticipate seeing him during training camp. I didn't anticipate really seeing him during preseason either. But Amik now might not be so much of a sleeper. I think that this guy's almost a lock to make the 53. He was selected in round 4, 139 overall in 2020. Coaches this offseason were impressed with his versatility during training camps. I get that he's undersized, but man, he's competitive. He's a good athlete, and your top 3 outside corners right now are Rock Ya-Sin, Anthony Averett, and Amik Robertson. The Raiders have been using Robertson as an outside guy because they're confident in Darius to be able to play on the inside. They're confident in Nate Hobbs to be able to play on the inside. So if you're telling me right now your cornerback 3 on the outside is Robertson, that actually goes a long way. Is he undersized to be an outside corner? Sure. But I'm hoping with his versatility that the outside corner keeps him on the team. But where he really, I do believe, is going to excel is being an inside slot guy at the National Football League level. So here's the cornerback room. A lot of interesting names out here. The Raiders, they signed, Darius Phillips. He was like the first corner to sign. I see this team keeping 5, potentially 6 corners. It's interesting to see what they end up doing with Trayvon Mullen. But Amik Robertson has a legitimate shot here to make this team. Let's go to the next name. Sleeper to make the 53. It's Lester Cotton Sr., an offensive lineman. And this was one of the biggest winners that you could look at from minicamp, from OTAs, because he was getting starting reps. And when you're a player who's a bubble fringe guy, practice squad player, and you take advantage of the fact that you're out there getting starting reps, it matters. Now, does that mean he's going to make the team? No. I mean, the reason why he's getting starting snaps is because guys like Denzel Good are banged up. Some of the other players weren't, getting all the opportunities. But, hey, he was getting starting reps at right guard. And he has exceptional size. He's got good power. He was one of the most highly recruited players back in 2014 before he went to Alabama. And maybe all he needed was a little work, was a little coaching up, and Tom Cable wasn't the guy that was able to do it. I have a lot of confidence in Carmen Basilio to get the most out of Lester Cotton. And last season, Cotton played a total of 11 snaps, but he played 5 snaps on the actual offensive line. The other snaps came in special teams and field goals and all that. But this guy's a big old dude, 6'4", 335 pounds. He's very, very strong. It's just, what players does he come over? If the Raiders keep 10 offensive linemen, then I think that they have a legitimate shot here to actually keep him. But if they only keep 9, which I am projecting, then to me, Lester ends up being the odd man out. But if this team does keep 10, I would keep him over Bam. I'd keep him over Alex Bars. I would give Lester a shot to actually make the team and succeed. The final sleeper to get to the final sleeper is coming up here in just a second. Also, thank you all for sticking with me. I've been kind of battling allergies slash a cold for the past few days, so if you hear me coughing, I'm sorry. I'm doing my best to get through it. But to make sure you guys stay up to date with training camp, because this is like the part of the year, y'all. I'm telling you, I know I say it a lot, but this is the part of the year where you can miss things. Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, my Venmo. I mean, I'm at Mitchell Renz 365, literally everywhere. So if you need to get in contact with me, hopefully you know how to find me. Let's go to the final player here. It's Jacob Hollister. And the Raiders are going to use 2 tight ends. Foss Moreau, Darren Waller, locked in. However, Jesper Horsted, Nick Bowers, and Hollister, they're all going to battle it out for the tight end 3 job. I think that this team ends up keeping 4 tight ends, but the more and more I go through and the more I look at, let's say, other 53-man roster projections that I've done, that I've seen other people do, they're kind of like mock drafts. You want to test certain things out. Sometimes I really like the Raiders rosters that I end up getting, when I only keep 3 tight ends. And maybe that's what happens here. Hollister played for the Patriots in 2017 and 2018. He can catch the football. He can block. He's not going to be a world beater by any means. But if I'm looking for somebody who can be stable behind Waller and Moreau, I would rather have somebody that I believe can do both of those things well. Like Nick Bowers might be the better catcher of the football. Jesper Horsted might also be the better receiver. He is the better receiver. But Hollister, to me, is the best blocker out of the bunch. And if I'm trying to fill those voids with my tight ends, I would like to have the better blocker because that's why you have guys like Demarcus Robinson. That's why you have guys like Keelan Cole. That's why you have guys like Mack Hollins. They can be those other pass catchers, and Hollister can be the blocker in those situations. So name a sleeper right now on the Raiders that you believe could make the 53-man roster. I went through some names. We went through some trending rumors. Name a sleeper to make the 53-man roster down in the comments.